Hi guys, I just wanted to make a video regarding how our puppy is escaping his playpen. Obviously we put him in there at night to sort of protect himself and make sure that he doesn't chew up the kitchen, because he's only 8 weeks old and at the moment that's, everything he walks past he wants to chew. So I come down one morning, the other morning, and he had escaped it, and I thought at first I'd left the door open or he'd somehow gone underneath it, because as you'll see later in the video, he struggles to even get up on the sofa, which he eventually does, but it's not something that he finds easy. So to climb out of this, we didn't think he'd be able to do it. Now, in hindsight, we probably need a sort of roof on it or something to stop him doing it. But as you see, we sort of roped it against because he was pushing the cage across the whole kitchen. But we never thought he'd be able to actually climb out. So when I come down in the morning and see him there on the sofa asleep, I was like, how did he do this? How has he managed to get out? But yeah, he did, and that's the main thing we wanted to do this recording for was not for YouTube or not for anyone else, but to see how he's doing it, because we don't want him to jump out or go under or hurt himself, because at the end of the day, if he, like we find out in a minute, that he climbs over the top, it's quite a big fall, and because the floor's quite slippery, he could easily really hurt himself or get his leg trapped in one of the bars, or just generally hurt himself, and it's not something we obviously want to come down to in the morning. We're not bothered about him getting out now, because yeah, if he chews the kitchen, we'd rather him chew the kitchen than him really hurt himself. But he attempts it a few times at first, and eventually he does do it. As the video goes on, you'll sort of see that I'm upstairs, so he might hear me a few times. That's might be why he sort of stops doing what he's doing and waits for me to come back down, because we never lock him in during the day, because there's always one of us in the house. So it's only at night that we put him to bed, just for through the night to like I said, to protect himself from anything in the kitchen or chewing our little girl's toys up or the sofa or anything else at the moment that he could just bite as he walks past. He will want to chew, especially the table, chairs and legs and everything that seems to come into his eyesight. But yeah, like you see, he attempts it a few times here. He gets up and nearly gets his feet up, and that's where he gets stuck. So what he's trying to do, and what he does in it, is get his feet up on that sort of second like bar going through. So once he can get his feet on there, he can hook himself over, and he does take a few attempts, but eventually he managed to hook himself over. Yeah, he's trying again now. He nearly does it here. So he's hooking his front arms over, if you call them that, his front legs over, to try and give himself enough sort of leverage to get his back legs up onto it. Obviously the cage moves a bit because we couldn't strap it down to the floor anymore. We sort of tied it to key points in the room. But yeah, he see, it's quite funny to watch, but also when he jumps out, it made us both sort of close our eyes, because we were like, oh my god, how is he going to do that? And we really don't want him to hurt himself. But here's where he finally gets out, gets them back legs up, stops for a second, and this is the bit that's quite horrible to watch, because you don't want him to hurt himself. But he doesn't land as bad as he could, but he could have easily landed on his head then. He then attempts to jump up on the sofa, which this is why we didn't think he could jump out of the cage, because he struggles getting up here. He's only 8 weeks old. But he sort of circles around the kitchen after, and what we realise is he jumps up in the corner of the sofa where it comes down a little bit, so that it's just a tiny bit lower, and sort of just drags himself through. So he's obviously quite clever how he's doing it, and Labradors are not stupid dogs, so they quickly realise what they want, and they'll do their best to get it. But yeah, once I come back in the room, he was asleep again on the sofa where he always likes going, and I bet if I went downstairs now, he's probably, because we don't lock him in during the day, he's probably asleep on the sofa now, because that's where he likes being, which is fine. But obviously at night we don't want him to hurt himself or chew anything in the room. But if anyone's got any suggestions how we could stop him climbing out, that would be great. But if not, we'll probably have to take away the cage. But it's just, if anyone's got a playpen like about this size, just be wary of how your puppies are getting out. Thanks for watching.